Yeah, Teresa, we're here in Washington, specifically out front of the White House. It's been a pretty busy couple of days, especially with the Epstein situation. The kind of Republican and Democrat caucuses, respectively, on the House side have been advocating in some cases to release the files. But what really is interesting is the Republicans who were advocating for it before President Trump took office and now seem to be advocating against the release of these files. You have, of course, the House Oversight Committee, specifically the ranking member on that committee, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia, who really has been leading the charge on the Democratic side to actually go ahead and release these files. And then on the Republican side, you have a couple of exceptions in terms of members who are breaking the ranks and advocating for the release of these files. You have people like Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who actually walked out crying of the session where members of Congress got to hear from some of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Nancy Mace herself is a survivor of sexual abuse. And so, certainly, that was one thing that people were talking about, the sense that she's someone who has firsthand experience and is therefore, perhaps prone because of that trauma to be advocating for the release of these files. But it's interesting, too, because you have kind of started to see this become, in some ways, a political kind of potato. You have again, on the Republican side, they were once advocating for it. Now they're advocating against it. And then even on the Democratic side as well, you have Republicans, even President Trump here at the White House, who has pointed out that Democrats had a number of opportunities to release these files. Of course, Joe Biden was in office as the president not too long ago. They had control of the White House, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. And it would have been very easy for them to release these files. And so some people pointing out that now the fact that the Republicans have control of the House of Representatives and then, of course, also control of the U.S. Senate as well, a lot of people are kind of just wondering in what ways will we be able to go about seeing the release of these files, right? A lot of Republicans have been advocating against the release of these files. Some people are saying it's because someone like President Trump, for example, could be implicated in these files. But it was interesting. You saw on NBC News just recently an interview with one of the anchors, Hallie Jackson, there, where she was interviewing some of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. And she asked them point blank whether or not Donald Trump was actually involved in the Epstein files. And they answered no categorically. And so that kind of is going against what the Democrats are trying to advocate for right now in terms of saying the reason the White House isn't releasing them is because there's some type of information in these files about the president. The president and his attorney general, Pam Bondi, have, consistently advocated against that. But even going back to some of the fractures that Republicans are seeing, it's interesting because Republicans have always had a history, at least recently, of being loyal to President Trump and being part of the MAGA movement. But when you look to the issue of Epstein, it's an issue where the Republicans have been, in fact, divided on it. And you see, even at recent conferences and different events and such, where Republicans have very much been fractured over this issue. So we're going to stay on it. But for now, we'll send it back to you.